Hello everyone, in this video Scott Resnick comments on the Millennial Typecast, advice for young entrepreneurs, and achieving or not achieving a work-life balance. I initially asked Scott if he ever experienced sort of these transitions that are typically classified as being millennial angst, and he really has an interesting response to it, and he says this isn't just millennial, Nora, this is human. So he has a very interesting way of explaining that.
I would argue with you that it's not millennial.
It's just human?
It's human.
Yeah.
And so often there's a millennial typecast to say, oh, this is a generation that's too selfish in this way, or too focused on themselves, or following this fad, and let's make sure every generation before it makes fun of the fad. The reality to it is we are a generation that is primarily more engaged, have causes like no other generation prior. We grew up with recycling as something that's in our nomenclature of something of like, of course you recycle. When was the last time you shared something, a political belief on Facebook or Twitter to all of your friends? So you can go through these pieces to it. So I don't think that we should typecast it as millennial angst or a generation's too lazy or focused more on Pokemon than other political events. Because every generation has that.
That's so refreshing to hear. I just think that we do get blamed with a lot of things.
There are a lot of things that millennials get blamed for. But the reality is we are a generation that has entered into a workforce that is very different than any previous generation. We've entered into a sharing economy. We've entered into an economy where essentially the dichotomy of the haves and have-nots have never been so great, those who are college educated and those who are not. Major wealth disparities. So there's a number of things that our generation has also inherited thanks to our parents and other previous generations that are uniquely millennial in that way that we don't discuss.
Scott then gives his advice for millennials who are entering this drastically different workforce and political and social environment.
It's keeping some realistic expectations. It's building a network around you, whether it's friendship circles, whether it's who you want to interact with, because eventually someone is going to introduce you to that employment opportunity that you're looking for. So it's how do you keep networks readily available?
This is fitting given Scott's political involvement in Madison very young, but he describes how there is a thirst and a need for young leaders.
There is a thirst for young leaders. And if you go into the concept of saying, look, I don't know everything, but I want to be a leader that impacts the world, you will find your place in society. Now, there are certain folks who want to be leaders that shouldn't be leaders, and that's a different issue. But very much so, if you have a big idea, you will usually find a support network that will support you.
Finally, I asked Scott if he has a personal definition of success and if he feels that he's been able to achieve work-life balance in his life.
That's a good question. I mean, personally, it's being reflective to say, like, we only have so many days that we're on this earth. Like, however I really look at it, I've now burned through like a third of those days. It's really sad, but you've burned through like a quarter of yours.
That's crazy.
So if we only have a very limited amount of time, how do we have an impactful, make every single day impactful? Now, what I've learned is you also can burn yourself out that way really quickly. Like you do need balance, which I'm trying to strive for. I mean, I personally come from a philosophy and hope not everybody goes down this road, but work-life balance is almost a joke. There's no such thing. There's always pressures, but it's when you do decide to relax. How do you make sure that you're actually recharging yourself? How do you make sure it's actually therapeutic? How do you make sure that you're not sitting there like, yes, it is 2 in the morning, but I'm not answering emails. So there are different life lessons there. At some point I will reflect on those, but I've been too busy
yeah.
trying to do other things to have an articulate answer.
Thank you very much for watching. I will have my full conversation with Scott Resnick linked below, as well as links to the Conversationalist website and social media.